Hello, my name is Susan Kraft, and this is Talk Art, a program supported by Golden Artist Colors and Silicon Valley Open Studios. Every year, during the first 3 weekends in May, more than 300 Silicon Valley artists open their studio to the public. This free event lets you discover some exciting new artistic talent or get up close and personal with some of your favorite artists. You can find out more about Open Studios by going to the website, svos.org. Today we're going to talk to Ron Andrews. He is the current chair at the Pacific Art League and a professional artist. Ron's going to tell us about how the Pacific Art League is doing after its noisy staff and board implosion. But more importantly, he is going to discuss his personal artistic journey. Right, Ron?
That's right.
Thank you so much for coming to Talk Art.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much, Susan.
Now, I have to put on my glasses here, take a look at what we're going to talk about first, and that would be, we're going to first talk about the Pacific Art League. The Pacific Art League in downtown Palo Alto, which is, what is a 100-year-old organization?
87 years.
87, and it started out in people's homes.
Started out in people's homes with some very famous Palo Altans, architects and artists, and it has grown over the years and currently in its historic building in downtown Palo Alto.
It's an incredible building right across the street from City Hall / police.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
/ underground parking.
Yes.
Best place to park in Palo Alto. Now, I understand you're looking for all sorts of things, like you restarted First Fridays in a different way. You've got crafts coming in the classroom downstairs. You've restyled it. There's all sorts of new stuff, lighting. You're looking for graffiti artists. Tell all of us all about that.
Well, the journey starts after what you alluded to, the implosion.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it implosion, but it was some discord over the building.
All right, we'll be polite about it.
Which caused, frankly, the members to be shy and stay away,
Yeah.
volunteers and programs to be neglected because of the distraction. It was a major distraction.
It was a distraction, unfortunately.
Okay, so, my tenure on the board started at the beginning of this year, and we have a board now that I can say honestly is very dedicated and works with a collegial atmosphere.
That's great to hear.
And we share our differences and we move forward. Okay, so
Good.
But the important thing is that everything that you would look at as a measure of progress is on an upset trend. And so membership is coming back, volunteers are coming back. We're having more shows. The galleries are seeing more entries. The First Friday receptions are showing more attendance. The number of classes we offer has increased. The enrollment is up. And so the trends are all positive. So we're all happy about it. Okay, that's the good news. But there's a ways to go.
Okay.
Okay, and the ways to go is we have a lot of ideas for things we'd like to do and we'd like to introduce in terms of new themes for shows, new classes, opportunities, new workshops.
I'm going to interrupt you for a moment here.
Sure.
Workshops and new classes, some of the word on the street. Now, the graffiti artist thing hasn't gotten out on the street. I've only heard it from you. So we need to let people know, call the Pacific Art League for either volunteer work, and we've got a phone number we can throw up on the screen, or also for if anybody knows a professionally styled graffiti art, professionally who can interact with an organization with their graffiti art, or if anybody wants to volunteer at this, it really has. It's like a rebirth, or it's a phoenix rising from what I thought was going to go away. Really, a lot of us were very afraid that Pacific Art League was going to be turned over to the state. So thank you for helping turn it around. But I want to get that phone number up there and make sure that we get that going. So
thanks.
You're
Art
welcome.
League is not going away. Okay,
No,
for sure
not.
it is not going away. Okay, and you're absolutely right. We're looking for things that are sort of progressive, on the edge. We would like the community to get involved in art, and we would like to be the place where people come to learn about what's going on in the art world, what's going on with artists, where are they leading, where are they headed. Graffiti art is a good example, and I like to use it when I talk to people about it because it's an example of something that started as something that was somewhat derogatory, but now is being viewed in the proper instances as a true art form. And so it would be fun to bring in an experienced graffiti artist and run a workshop, allow people to experience it firsthand, do it themselves, and then have a show.
You know,
So I love it.
I saw graffiti art as a major installation at the Chicago Midway Airport. It was probably 30, 40 feet long and 10 feet tall of graffiti art as you walked on a corridor. It was beautiful, incredible, and I was so happy to hear that you were thinking about, well, hoping to find somebody that could do that sort of thing for the Pacific Art League. Teaching?
Teaching?
Okay. I don't want to forget the print lab.
Yes.
That has completely changed over. Again, word on the street is, oh, it was set up just the way we wanted it to. It was so carefully crafted, but then when I find out, dig deeper, it was a closed community because it was a very specialized. So most printers didn't print that way, and most people thinking about learning were not looking for this specialized closed community. They wanted to have the more standard. And tell me about what's going to happen. It's going to be open it up to a wider audience.
Printmaking and printmakers are important to us. I mean, the league has a unique capability to offer, and so we would like to attract. Now, correct, we had a green process. It was very specialized. You know, the board myself had to deal with the fact that the art league has to be financially viable, and printmaking needs some underwriting, frankly, to be, and we have to find a way to do that.
Always or the old way?
Well, I don't know about in the future, but the old way certainly, okay? Because the number of students who are interested in a specialized, although a green process, is very attractive for Palo Alto. However, if a traditional printmaker comes in expecting traditional process, it wasn't there, okay? So now we're trying to rebuild a printmaking program, okay? And we're at the beginning of that, frankly, and I think it will be successful. We're making progress as we are in all the other areas, but you know, when we talk again in a year, I'll give you a report. All
right. Well, you'll have to come back certainly. And
Absolutely.
We've got a lot to talk about yet so far. So
okay.
Let's see. What if we've missed any things? There's so much to talk about the Art League, but I definitely want to make sure we get to. We've got a lot to talk about with your artwork. So we have. Oh, I know what we haven't talked about yet. The crafts. You know, last time I went to First Friday, you had a whole room set up with beautiful crafts, handmade jewelry. Small pottery pieces. Please tell me more about that. It was filled too. There's tons of people, and I thought, great. Right now, we're close to the holidays right now, so really happy about that right now. But over the whole year, it's going to be great.
Sure, and it's part of the thinking of the Art League is a part of the community. It has to offer the community what the community wants. Okay, and the community likes a place to come and view art, likes to have a place to come and become educated, learn artistic techniques. But it also likes to buy gifts and other things. And it turns out that, you know, looking at ourselves and others in the area, that crafts are particularly desirable. So we've increased our number of craft artists, our craft offerings, and as a result, gallery sales have gone up.
Wow, it's great. That's good.
Traffic in the gallery has gone up.
Wonderful.
Okay, and we've, as a result of that, put some effort into the gallery. We've renovated a bit, added more space for hanging space for exhibitions, in addition to maintaining an expanded craft artist space.
Now, you paint also. Obviously, we've got two. By the way, these two pieces here are Ron's, and they're not part of the set. They're part of the set, but they came from him. And Ron is a very serious artist. He paints in water media on watercolor paper, but has changed his style from classic, very very classic and water.
Very representational.
Representational, thank you.
Yes.
Representational landscapes to looser and style using unconventional watercolor techniques, not even watercolor techniques. You're using canvas techniques on your watercolor paper with gesso and palette knives and all sorts of things. Credit cards even said. So would you please talk to me about at least the two pieces here, and then we have several images we're going to bring up on the screen for our viewing audience.
Okay. Just a brief, you know, my background. I'm a technically trained physicist, and so my career has been in R&D and physics for a number of years. Always interested in art, but didn't have the opportunity to get serious until retirement, and that's where I'm at. And So the passion is for art, for watercolor and water media, because watercolor in particular is so spontaneous. It's the only media that can do that. And you can follow the spontaneity and then add the detail that creates the impression that you want. And that just turns me on. Okay, so
Good.
I just love that. But as an artist, where you start is learning technique, and representational painting is where you start.
With small brushes as a
With
watercolor.
small brushes, which I
What
just
do you have here?
happen
What do
to
you have?
have right here.
Let's see,
okay?
let's see.
These are the beginner's tools.
Let me see these here. Yes, indeed, they are. I have to put
Small
this. They're so
diameter.
small. I'm going to put my reading glasses on and take a look at these. We have small diameter, and they are nice brushes, white sable, and here they are, small, regular little brushes. So
Okay, but then you paint that's great for painting detail, but my idea is I have a camera for detail, and my own personal impression of art is it ought to represent the mind's eye,
Okay.
not the visual eye.
impressions. So you've done
Impressions,
impressionistic
yes.
watercolors.
Yes.
So what do you use for impressionistic watercolors?
Well, then you have to force yourself to
Oh.
be impressed. So you go from
Is
you
this a-
graduate to a brush.
Is this a house painting brush, or did
No,
you?
that is a watercolor brush. That is,
Wow.
that is an
Look
investment.
at this.
It
This
turns
is
out.
Skyflow Robert Simmons. I think Robert Simmons is over here too.
That's
Look
right.
at this.
That's right.
So this is probably about $15 or $20. This is probably what, 80?
About
110.
80.
100. I see 110 here. $110. He paid $110 for this brush. It's a very fine brush. Wow. Now, now this looks like a house brush. So, house painting brush. The difference is, house painting brush has a big hole in the middle. You can't have that for watercolor. You need to have these bristles tight, or you won't hold the paint
Hold a
in
lot
there.
of paint.
And you need to do that so you can do a nice
And it
wash.
has to be soft, so you don't mar the paper,
wanna mar the paper.
when you put the pigment on.
Right. If
okay?
you
And
mar the
so-
paper, the pigment will just be attracted to that mar, even the
that's right.
slightest, teeniest little touch. So yeah, you need to have this really soft. It's really nice. So I will put this over here. I will get
Okay,
them back to
so-
the end of the show, but I want to keep them
So
with me.
big brushes, stand
Big
up.
brushes.
Never paint sitting down.
Far away.
Far away.
Far away.
Paint with the shoulder and the elbow, never with the wrist or the fingers. Okay.
What else? Do you have
And
other
that's
things
what
down
you
here?
do.
What else do you have
Yes,
down
I do.
here?
Well, okay, let me tell you about the progression, though.
Okay.
The progression is experiment. In my mind, art is about marks on paper, and how you put the marks on paper is totally irrelevant. Whether
You don't
it be
need
with
to
a
have
brush,
the classic little brush.
it can be done with a palette knife, even though you're working in watercolor.
Now, isn't it going to
okay?
mar the paper?
No, it doesn't, because the other thing I do is I pre-paint the paper with gesso.
Gesso.
But not the whole paper, just a shape on the paper. Gesso changes the surface in that area than it does on the paper surface.
We know this. I'm a painter, so also, and I paint on canvas these days, and I put gesso on. It does change the property, and I never really would have thought to do that with watercolor paper.
But see, I love outdoors, I love nature, I love rocks. The Sierras are just a wonderland, and to me. And so painting rocks is a challenge. And so how do you paint the texture of a rock? Okay, I found, experimenting, that you pre-paint with gesso, you apply watercolor, and then you use a credit card, a palette knife, your finger, and you can move pigment across and create a texture that is very rock-like.
Well, let's
very
look at some of this. So we want to bring up
Okay.
some of your images
So,
too.
Here's an example of an underpainting.
Okay, an underpainting.
And the rock area is the underpainting. And
So-
then the suggestion of a landscape by adding the image of something that represents a tree. Other than that, it wouldn't be.
Is this a completed painting?
It is a completed
Okay,
painting.
so it's a completed painting with an underpainting of gesso.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes?
So did you do any painting on this paper before you put the gesso on there?
No.
So that's the first thing you do. Do you know what you're going to do, or do you just slap it on there
No,
and then the painting comes forward?
I start with just painting several of these ahead of time, just an interesting shape.
Okay, what else you
Okay?
got?
Here's another interesting shape.
Ooh,
the
look at that.
variety is
Wow.
enormous. This could be suggestive of a coastline, of the side of a mountain.
It could be a close-up of a bunch of grass seeds.
It could be.
Yeah.
Absolutely could be.
Wow.
It's all in the mind's eye.
Yeah, beautiful.
And that's the idea.
Beautiful.
And you can go further than that.
Okay, what else do you have here? One more? Okay,
We have
cool.
one more.
Let's see. This way? Okay, now we're going to go up high. All right.
Okay.
All right.
Images, shapes of rocks,
Okay.
textured like rocks.
Uh-huh.
but represent strength, majesty,
Certainly does.
with a very quiet place with a solitary tree.
The tree.
to-
Oh yeah,
to
look at
put
that little
in-
tree. We just went
To
past.
put
We're just going
in,
past
to
it
put
now.
in the
There it
hint
goes.
of a landscape.
There's the tree.
Okay,
There
there's
is
always
the
a
tree.
hint of an impression of a landscape.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's bring up some of your images that we have pre-programmed, and then you can tell us about those too. Here's one. It's called Harvest. Now this one is a more representational. It's less abstract. You don't have any
No,
sizing on
it's
here.
just soft. And the other thing
Okay.
I've neglected to say is I always start very wet.
Uh-huh.
A watercolor or snow, you apply paint into a wet surface, it tends to do its own thing, and that's the way I start.
Okay, let's have another. And the next one that we're going to look at is called Floral, and that's real similar to your Harvest.
It's similar to Harvest, it's just a different subject matter, okay? And it's
Okay.
experimenting with subject matter.
It's very nice, yeah. And next we have is Fractured Forest.
This is back, coming back to a landscape.
Do we have any
Recreation.
gesso on here or any size?
There is no gesso. I didn't.
All right.
These were done before I've experimented
Oh,
with
okay.
the gesso.
So we're going to
okay?
go, we're kind of in
We're kind of
chronological
in a
order here. So it's
chronological,
earlier or this is a year or two ago. Misty.
Yes. Now we get to the point where this is gesso. And then
Which
this
is gesso, the ground or the sky?
The gessoed is in a little bit in the ground.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so for texture, okay,
Yes.
because sky doesn't have texture. Now we've got
Right.
Into the Mist, and there I can see you've got something
rock.
making those lines.
The rock there is an underpainting.
Okay.
Okay. And then on top of it, after it's all done, is another glaze of an opaque
Is that what that white-
watercolor.
that
the
white
white
goo?
is.
The
to
white
be
streams.
to be suggestive of water and the flow of water.
Okay, so next, City Lights.
City Lights is working on something other than paper. This is on
Okay.
a plastic paper called UPO.
Wow.
And using acrylics as well, and so it's applicable here too.
Okay, next is Contour.
Contour is just an example of, again, an underpainting. There's
Okay.
the next series here we can just
Okay,
go
let's
through
just
rapidly.
go through them. Okay, and those are
Okay.
all going to be like the ones you just
Examples,
showed us.
that's
Okay,
right.
these are more modern
These
for you.
are
Sentinel.
done in the last few months.
Next one is Emergence.
Right.
And the next one is Downside. And the downside and Portrait.
Yes, a portrait of a rock,
See
if
that?
you will.
Yes, okay. And now we have Granite. Oh, beautiful. So that has I could really see how the gesso works for you.
Yes.
Water's
Okay.
Edge. Nice. How the paint moves
Okay,
away
so
from
now
the paint.
these last two were done
The
again
horizon?
on plastic paper. They were done with acrylic as well as
Oh,
watercolor.
okay.
Okay, and it all depend on the movement of pigment on a wet surface.
Great, great. Well, thanks. So we've got plastic surface and gesso and
paper.
paper and palette knife,
Right,
all
yeah.
very unconventional watercolor tools and media.
I'm
Not
a
media, but-
physicist, an experimental physicist.
Very good.
And so experimenting with art just comes second nature.
All right. Now, I actually want to move into your representation. You started showing us with this almost like a slideshow of your older, less perfect sort of watercolors, and then moved into your more current stuff that's
Right.
very, very edgy and not classic watercolor at all. But you started out very classically stylized watercolor, which is representational. So can you show us a few of those? You've got, not here, but up on the screen. We've got 5 or
Sure.
6 of those? Okay.
Sure.
Here we've got Yosemite Morning.
This is
How
right.
long ago was that?
Oh, that's about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Okay, and that's just trying to get soft.
I like the reflection. That's very nice. Then the next
Okay.
one? The next one is San Francisco.
Cisco,
And there's,
right.
now you have this is from your mind though, right? You did not take a picture. This is something you just knew. There's the bridge and there's Coit Tower.
Oh, I knew when I started I wanted to do something about San Francisco.
Okay.
Okay, and my prep is I viewed a lot of photographs of the city.
Yeah.
I
Well,
put those all aside, did not have anything in front of me, and then started to paint.
okay.
And Coit Tower came out as a focal point, and the rest is something that
Yeah.
the mind would come to mind. There are trees, there are hills,
Yep.
there's water, there's
San
a bridge,
Francisco.
and there's mist.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's all
And
combined.
the next one?
And the next one is a study
No,
on...
wait. Before you go forward with this,
Okay,
I want people to just look at this for a moment. In the studio audience, please look at this. They've got a big screen here to look at, and people at home. When I first saw this, I thought,
Okay.
well, he is pulling my leg. This is totally abstract. And then I saw the yellow umbrella. Well, that's okay. He used a yellow umbrella just to anchor us in reality. But then he tells me,
This is a slightly modified for composition point of view image of the Holocaust memorial.
wow.
Okay, and it's altered to create a scene. I don't know if the image shows it accurately enough, but it's called Winter Memories because it is a snow scene.
Okay.
Okay, and the umbrellas are there to provide some brightness and some hope.
And they do.
Okay, and they do. Okay, and but it's meant to be, from an artistic point of view, abstract point of view, just a study on shapes.
That's a pretty tough image to, after your beautiful landscapes and your quirky landscapes and your rocks, all of a sudden, Holocaust.
Yes.
Okay, now we've got Signs of Spring, which is a nice respite after.
A dogwood, a sprig of dogwood in springtime, a favorite flower. Okay.
Yes, it
and
is
so
for
it's
most of us, yeah.
it was a challenge. I mean, I do the florals because my wife loves gardens and flowers, and I
Oh,
have
aren't
to
you
do
sweet?
something occasionally to get a compliment.
Okay, so hopefully, here we've
Yes.
got lunch. So you take her out for lunch with
Yes.
a bottle of wine and a
And
loaf
this
of
was
bread.
a challenge to do something that
cheese?
was very representational, and it represented a lunch that we have had in the past: a bottle of wine, some bread and cheese.
And you go out to the park and look
And
at
we
the
go out to the
dogwood.
park and look at the dogwood. Absolutely. You
Or,
got it.
or the bridge in Coit
Or the
Tower.
bridge,
Go to-
or up in the Sierras.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always the same lunch in different location.
And here's your wine. Oh, can we go back to the wine, please? We've got an abstracted wine.
Now, we love wine.
Oh, I've seen this one, actually. You had this in the show.
Yes,
at
I
the
did.
Pacific Art League, yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's a study of layers of abstraction.
And bay lines. Bay lines?
Bay lines, which is behind me,
Oh, indeed.
which is another version of bay lines. That one is in my son's
Yeah.
office.
Yeah, okay. That one has,
It's my
oh, I
first
see.
award-winning painting.
Ah.
Okay.
And so you repainted it?
I repainted it because I wanted one for myself.
Yeah. A little bit lighter touch, the
Yes.
one in the studio here.
Yes.
And we're looking at it on the screen now with a lighter, just a lighter touch. Less
Right.
pigment in the
All
water.
right, it was an attempt to do a representational image, just viewing lines.
It's wonderful. Yeah,
Okay.
you did. So you used not a palette knife, dry brush.
Just dry brush
Dry brush.
technique on that. And,
Okay.
just another thought that, how would this work? And sometimes the experiments work, sometimes they don't, but it's all in the doing and the satisfaction that comes out of it.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about about your representational art? Actually, what I want to get you to do is to talk to me about. Let's take my glasses off. Get
Okay.
serious here. Talk to me about, and talk to the rest of us about how you've spent decades as a physicist, experimental physicist, for very serious groups, Lockheed, Navy at DC, Xerox in New York. And I know from personal experience that when you do research, that it takes a inquisitive mind, and you have to think outside the box and look at things from lots of different angles, very similar to artists trying to figure out how to get across an idea and a feeling onto a flat piece of substrate to make it look like there's depths and so on. So, but then you come into art and you do representational, which is very analytic.
Right.
And until you have to learn the tools, which is analytic, and then you just paint what you see, analytic. But then you move into the more, well, let's look at this in a different way.
Yes.
And experimental. So talk to me about how it feels for you and for the artists that are watching this, because this show is for artists. I mean, anyone can watch this, of course, and many people do, just because we're also interested in the art we have is so beautiful. But really, for the artist that's watching this today, and they want to know, well, how do I make that leap from representational to abstract? And you've gone through it so recently. Can you explain it?
I think it's different for everybody, but in my case, because of the technical training and the always constantly worrying about detail and precision, it was a challenge. And we suggested earlier that, I use wet techniques with watercolor, I use big brushes, I stand back, I use arm's length, and these
Not
kinds
the
of
technique.
things. But
What
I
goes on
experiment
in here?
and try and convey an idea that's in the mind in a way that wouldn't normally be there. And that's a challenge. It's never exactly right, but every one accomplishes something. The one behind you is a representation of nature, rocks,
Okay.
a rocky cliff, but it's suggestive of a torso,
Okay.
of a female torso.
All right.
It's the beauty of nature as might be reflected in what we consider beauty in
Well,
everyday
through
life.
your eyes as a
through
man.
my eyes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Mhm.
And so it's another way of representing that. When I do landscapes, I try and portray something that in my mind has an element of beauty and quality that is not there in any photograph.
Okay.
Okay, and you know, nature is great, but it's not necessarily artistic. And
Well,
because
When you were making, you had to make a decision. First of all,
Yes.
I'm going to pull away from painting the individual hairs on the head and the individual eyelashes on the face, you know, that kind of thing, right? And the nail, to do something more representational. I mean, sorry, abstracted of reality, like what happened to the
Right.
Impressionistic people in France, 100 years
Right.
ago. When you had to force yourself to not, right, so we've learned to take big brushes. People have told us that. We'll just
Right.
take big brushes, block things out. Did you get the aha feeling as you went, oh, okay, I can.
it didn't
this is-
come just in one moment.
It
but
took a few
over-
tries,
over-
right?
over-
Were you
over-
disappointed
over a
at
period
first?
of time. Oh, absolutely.
Did you say, I hate this and I
Oh,
want to do it
absolutely.
anymore?
I have a whole pile of
Okay.
paintings that I consider failures.
Thank you for
And I'm-
telling us that.
And I'm in the process of turning them over and painting on the other side.
Good, good. All right.
Okay.
We're being told we have to wrap up here.
Okay.
And I want to, is there anything else you wanted to say? Because I really wanted to get that clear out there that you've gone from really tight to very loose, and it was not easy.
Not easy,
Not easy.
but
and
very satisfying.
good. All right. So keep trying, everybody. If you want to do that. You don't have to, but if you want to. So Pacific Art League, one more time.
Yes.
You're going to change, you are going to help lead the Pacific Art League into changing the actual structure of the building.
Yes.
And we have one picture that we can have up on the screen, I think, right?
Right. This is a photoshopped image, I think.
Photoshopped
of
image.
of-
They're telling. Well, no, we're closing it up. All right, you're gonna have to go to talk to Ron. Go to the Pacific Art League and ask for Ron Andrews, and he will talk to you personally about this.
Okay. The important
Thank
point
you.
is we're going to do the building over.
We're gonna do the building over. It's gonna be retrofitted, and it's gonna be bigger.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for coming
Thank you,
here tonight.
Susan. I've enjoyed it.
Me too.